Good evening. My name is Christy Savakinas, and I am the Director of Technology at Pittston Area School District. I would like to welcome everyone to our virtual school board meeting for September 15th, 2020. Attendees tonight include the Board of Education members, our Superintendent, Mr. Kevin Booth, Business Manager, Mr. Albert Malone, Solicitor, Attorney Samuel Falcone. Also attending are members of the district administrative team and our board secretary, Mrs. Claire Ellen Hopple. Mrs. Hopple will be available to field questions for those attending via the live stream, available from the Pittston Area School District website. Those of you attending live, please note there is a link available on the website to download and view tonight's agenda. The agenda will not be shown during the live stream, so we can focus on the board members as they present the agenda. At any point in time during the meeting, you can direct questions by emailing Mrs. Hopple at clarellen.hopple@pittstonarea.com. Mrs. Hopple's email address can also be found on the homepage of the Pittston Area School District website, www.pittstonarea.com. I would like to start the meeting showcasing our fourth grade teachers as they present the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join in with them.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all.
At this time, I would like to turn the meeting over to our board president, Dr. Frank Serino. Thank you.
Thank you, Chrissy. Good evening, and welcome to the Pittston Area Board of Education's monthly meeting. Work session will be first, and I'd like to call the meeting to order with roll call.
Mr. Agnizio? Dr. Cooper?
Here.
Mr. Crawford?
Here.
Mr. Knick? Mr. Knick?
Here.
Mr. Lawler?
Here.
Mr. Quinn?
Here.
Ms. Ricotta?
Here.
Mr. Salvo?
Here.
Dr. Serino?
Here. Like now to move to the superintendent's agenda. Kevin, if you would.
Thank you, Dr. Serino. Before I begin my agenda, I just want to talk a little bit about, in accordance with Governor Wolf's order, we are limited to the amount of spectators that we could have at our sporting events. This Friday, we have a home football game against Berwick. We are allowed 250 spectators at the event. And that 250 number includes all of the players, cheerleaders, band, and game personnel. With that being said, with the amount of people we're talking about there, we have room for about 40 spectators. For this game, those 40 spectators will be the parents of our senior football players. In the upcoming games, depending upon how many spectators we're allowed, we will be, if we're stuck at the 250, our next game will be allowing either the cheerleaders, senior parents, and the band senior parents, and moving it down, allowing our parents first right to be there to see that their children play or perform. We are asking that the public does not try to attend the game. Anyone that does not have a ticket for the game will not be allowed on the property of the Pittston Area School District. So I just ask that anyone in the public please be courteous to those rules. For my agenda, under communications, C1, the PSBA 2020 candidates for the following positions be approved as they were voted on by the board members at an earlier time. President David Fine, Vice President Daniel O'Keefe, Treasurer Michael Gossert, Western at Large Marcia Pletta, Section 2 Advisor Amy Kamick, Section 4 Advisor Brian Patula, PSB Trustee, Seat 1, Michael Fasanetto. PSB Trustee Seat 2, Mary Ann Neal. Forum Steering Committee, Stephen Skorky. And Forum Steering Committee, Tracy Long. Seat 2, the communication received from Yatesville Bus Company and Pace Transportation, submitting their list of drivers and routes for the 2020-21 school year be acknowledged as received, approved, and placed on file. Seat 3, that the communication received from the Wilkes-Barre Area Career and Technical School, enclosing copies of its meeting minutes for August 17, 2020, be acknowledged as received and placed on file. C4, that the abatements and additions received from Luzerne County Assessment Office be acknowledged as received and placed on file. C5 is our permit to use school facilities. Under finance, that the Pittston Area School District contribute $3 per student to the Pittston Memorial Library for the 2020-21 school year be approved. 3,213 students for a total of $9,639. Under bids, we have B1, that the bid for copy machines, which was opened on September 10th of 2020, be awarded to the highest bidder, which was Laron Karen Town Business Center, in the amount of $14,535. Under general, that the guidance department had be given approval for the supervision and administration of the standardized test to the students of the Pittston Area School District for the 2020-21 school year. G2, that the proper officers of the district be empowered to execute the contracts for transportation for the following students for the 2020-21 school year. Student number 250054, student number 299667, student number 240258. G3, that the handbooks for all district students for the 2020-2021 school year be approved. G4, that the agreement with Wyoming Valley Alcohol and Drug Services Incorporated and the district for the 2020-2021 school year be acknowledged as received, approved, and placed on file. G5, that the revised Pittston Area School Board Policy number 103, discrimination / Title IX sexual harassment affecting students, be approved and placed on file. G6, that the revised Pittston Area School Board Policy number 104, discrimination / Title IX sexual harassment affecting staff, be approved and placed on file. G7, that the revised Pittston Area School Board Policy number 626, federal fiscal compliance, be approved and placed on file. G8, that the new Pittston Area School Board Policy number 146.1, trauma informed approach, be approved and placed on file. G9, that the ATSI non-Title I school plan 2020-2021 school year be acknowledged as received, approved, and placed on file. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Kevin. I'd now like to bring the official board meeting of the Pittston Area School District to order. Roll call.
Mr. Anisio,
Present.
Dr. Cooper,
Here.
Mr. Crawford,
Here.
Mr. Knick,
Here.
Mr. Lawler,
Here.
Mr. Quinn,
Here.
Ms. Ricotta,
Mr. Crota, you're muted.
Here. Mr. Salvo,
Here.
Dr. Serino.
Here. Anyone have any new business from the work session? If not, any updates from LIU 18?
I don't have anything, Dr. Serino.
Nothing. Thank you. Wilkes-Barre Career Technical Center?
No report. Just basically that some of the schools are shifting students up there, and so far everything's going well. There was no incidents or anything.
Thank you. Kevin, any public input for the agenda?
Please move it.
There are no comments on agenda items at this time.
Thank you. The board met this evening at 5 p.m. for the purpose of discussing personnel. I'd like a motion to approve minutes of the meeting for August 18, 2020 and August 27, 2020. Roll call.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Ednizio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. I'd like to entertain a motion that C1 to C5 be acknowledged as received, accepted, placed on file, and ratified. Motion?
Motion.
Second.
Mr.
Roll call.
Ednizio, Mr. Ednizio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. Under finance, I'd like to accept the motion that finance F1 be approved. Motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second. Mr. Adnizio.
Roll call.
Mr. Ednizio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. A motion on bids, a motion and a second for B1.
Mr.
Motion.
Adnizio, motion.
Second,
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Ednizio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. Now I'd like to accept a motion that G1 through 39 be approved as so presented. Motion?
Motion, Mr. Knick.
Second, Mr. Salvo. Roll call.
Mr. Ednizio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. A motion to accept P1 to P8 and approve. Motion?
Motion, Mr. Lawler.
Mr. Salvo, second.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Mr. Ednizio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. Now I'll accept the motion based upon an administrative recommendation that Valerie Tier be appointed to the position of high school building secretary, salary and benefits as contractual agreement. Motion?
Excuse me, Mr. President.
Yes,
P8?
yes, sir.
P8?
P9.
We have a P8.
P9. All right. P9?
P8.
I'm sorry, hold on. I thought that was included in the first part, John. Let me check.
It was.
P8 was included in P1 through P8.
Okay. That was in the last vote, John.
Okay.
A motion on P9?
Motion, Mr.
Motion,
Salvo.
Mr. Knick.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Second, Mr. Salvo.
Thank you. Mr. Ednizio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. P10, that upon administrative recommendation, Stacy Singer be appointed to the position of Business Office Administrative Assistant, salary and benefits as per contractual agreement. Motion?
Motion, Mr. Salvo.
Second.
Mr. Salvo.
Second.
I thought you were
Roll
first.
call.
Who was
Quinn
second?
was first. Mr. Quinn was first.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Salvo, second.
Thank you. Mr. Ednizio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. On P12, and upon the administrative recommendation, Amy Mahako be appointed to the position of Business Office Administrative Assistant, salary and benefit as per contractual agreement. Motion?
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Knick.
Dr. Sereno, you went to P12. We didn't do
We
P11.
missed P11.
Missed
Gotta do
it. Hold on. All right. Well, we'll finish P12. I'll go back. On the motion for P12,
Who was first at the motion, please?
Motion, Mr. Knick.
Thank you. Who was second?
Mr. Salvo, second.
Okay, thank you.
roll call?
Mr. Ednizio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. P11, that Jill Dietrich, upon administrative recommendation, be appointed to the position of Business Office Administrator Assistant, salary and benefits as per contractual agreement.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Lawler. Second, Mr. Lawler. Mr. Salvo, second.
I think Mr. Ednizio was
Mr. Salvo, second.
Mr. Ednizio?
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. P13, that upon administrative recommendation, Elisa Ranelli be appointed to the position of Payroll Business Office Manager, salary and benefits as per Act 93.
Motion, Mr. Ednizio.
Second, Mr. Salvo.
Mr. Ednizio? Mr. Ednizio?
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. P14, that Don Licata be appointed to the position of Secretary to the Superintendent / Board of Education, salary and benefits as per Act 93. Motion?
Motion.
Motion,
Motion.
Mr. Knick.
Second, Mr. Lawler.
Mr. Ednesio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. Under Finance and Business, a motion that FB1 through FB5 be accepted and approved. Motion?
Motion,
Mr.
Quinn.
Second.
Mr. Ednesio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Knick,
Yes.
Mr. Lawler,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Ms. Ricotta,
Yes.
Mr. Salvo,
Yes.
Dr. Sereno.
Yes. Any new business from the board? If not, Kevin, do we have any public input?
Yeah, we have a couple. First is from John Poli from Houston. His question is regarding COVID-19 guidelines. Why are Attorney Falcone and Mr. Malone 6 feet apart from one another? Isn't that against the state and national health guidelines? I believe that because they can't be 6 feet apart because of where they're sitting, that they are wearing masks. That is the recommendation. I have a letter from Leslie Whittick. Good afternoon. I would first like to start this email by commending all of my children's teachers. I've had the pleasure of listening to several classes throughout the past couple of days, and their patience, compassion, and understanding are outstanding. I understand this is a learning curve for the children, parents, teachers, and administrators. With that being said, my concerns come from the amount of time they are on computers. While the intermediate center has shortened online hours, the middle school has not. My son is in front of a computer from 8:30 a.m. until 2:40 p.m. every day with a designated lunch break. Unfortunately, there are days that he does not have a study, thus he is live for 7 class periods. We purchased a screen for his laptop to combat his daily headaches. However, it's not helping. I remember watching one of the meetings, perhaps in July, in which Mr. Booth stated that if we were going entirely virtual, our children would not be on computers all day. To my understanding, teachers can only record the first 20 minutes of their lessons, and they have to shut off the recording. If this is the case, why can't our district go to an early dismissal schedule while doing virtual schooling? The middle school classes would all be roughly 27 minutes long, and you are still getting in all of your classes. It will give the children the chance to take a much needed break and return later to complete any assignments. I've spoken to several other parents that have the same concerns with the amount of screen time. They too are incredibly pleased with the teachers, educational assistants, and administrators' efforts and dedication, but would like to see a change in the amount of screen time. I believe that if you shorten the day for these children, not only would it benefit them, but also parents who are also trying to hold down full-time positions. I want to thank you for taking the time to read my concerns and again commend the teachers on an amazing job they are doing. Ms. Whittick, unfortunately, we're still held to having to give 900 hours of instruction, as well as at the elementary level, and 990 hours of instruction. So as far as having all half days, that would not be a possibility. But I will speak with Mr. Bilbo and the staff at the middle school, because you are correct. We don't expect the children to be sitting in front of a monitor all day long. They should be receiving the first part of their instruction and then be given an assignment to do that will lessen their screen time. So thank you for your for your letter. From Melissa Kelly, I'm writing on behalf of my children. Addison Kelly is in the 4th grade and Ireland Kelly is in kindergarten. I just want to express my concerns. The school day is very lengthy, which impacts my family significantly. My husband and I are essential workers. We chose to send our kids not only because we work, but the education that they would receive virtually is just suboptimal. I'm hoping that this is reevaluated in the near future, maybe shorter days or hybrid, because 5 days a week at home all day is not optimal at all. Computer delays, multiple logins and outs is not benefiting anyone. It's actually causing more burden, if that makes sense. We're continuing to evaluate and looking at the health concerns that we have in the community and the educational concerns, and we're constantly weighing all of those, and we'll continue to evaluate. So whether we go back to a hybrid or this goes its course until the end of the first quarter, we're going to continue to evaluate that. From Melissa Cincetti, I hope you're all doing well. I'm writing as a follow-up message I sent several weeks ago, which is below. I would like to know if there's any possibility of you reconsidering the return to school date that you previously selected. Is there any chance that you will revote on whether or not students return to face-to-face education prior to November? While I understand your inclination to follow the pattern of most of the schools in our state, I would ask that you carefully evaluate the information that we have available from reputable sources to determine if your decision to keep our young people at home in front of a computer 5 days a week is based on facts or fear. As someone who has been trained as both a healthcare provider and I would boldly suggest that there simply does not exist enough consistent evidence to continue this inappropriate method of instruction for our K-12 students. If you would like resources, or if you think it would be helpful for me to present to the board during your executive session, I would be happy to do so. I appreciate your time and look forward to seeing a reconsideration of this. From Jeff Bauman, I'd like to make a recommendation that the chair repeat who was the first and second for each motion, so people know who are actually motioning, not just by first heard. This helps with those we cannot see due to not being on video. I also encourage board members be on video. I applaud Dr. Cooper for always being on screen. Thank you, Mr. Cota and Mr. Anizio, for being on screen today. A copy of the minutes will be available as soon as they're approved at the next school board meeting. That is all the public input I have.
With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Motion?
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Salvo.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.